All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And welcome to a Thursday show. I love Thursdays. I really do. I know I've got my David Katz coming, which we will have for you in the second hour. I know I have some major political news because the week is unfolding and there's considerable momentum around a couple of stories. In fact, Nikki Haley, of course, making news. Maybe not a huge surprise. But
hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
Yeah, George, you're not making news today, particularly, but we know you're always bubbling in the background, so anything is possible.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
Thank you, George. But the point I'm trying to make is...
a lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
Speaking of liars, does it really surprise you that Nikki Haley, who decried the Donald Trump threat as a real one, who spoke of his incompetence, of the danger of Donald Trump, she would never really go near Donald Trump. She argued against voting for Donald Trump as she ran against him in the Republican primaries. Now, she is bowing to Donald Trump. That's right. They all do eventually. As the South Carolina governor, the former governor, celebrates him. That's right. In a sense, she has certainly taken back the words of the past, calling Trump chaotic, unhinged. I mean, that's pretty disparaging language, and I just...
What?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that she is now, if not hugging it out with Trump, certainly sidling up to him. And I think you can get into some political speculation, which I'm happy to do, as to why she's doing it, besides sort of just a kind of general fealty to her party. So we'll get into some of that. In fact, I think there'll be time to do that throughout the show when we're not talking to guests. We have two guests today. And
that's pure speculation.
We have guests in the show that have to do with the law and politics, the Supreme Court. That would all fall to David Katz. The redistricting in South Carolina. The South Carolina redistricting map was ruled biased and underpinned by perhaps some racist motivations. The lower court didn't say that, but that's certainly implied. The Supreme Court has said, no, actually, we kind of liked it the way it was. And they have ruled that the redistricting, which essentially... the redistricting would have provided inclusion in a minority area, a largely black community. Now they like that sort of being carved out. So we'll talk to David Katz about that in the second hour. Also, what's happening at SCOTUS with yet another flag at the Alito home. This flag associated with J6ers, also with the American Revolution. How many flags do the Alitos have? They have a lot of flags at the Alito house, don't they? They love their flags.
Fry your freak flag kind of family, I guess.
They really do love their flags. Yeah. Anyway, we'll speak to David Katz about that. Of course, we'll cover the Trump trial. I really want to mention and get a bit of a dissection of what's going on in Louisiana. I mean, they have essentially classified the abortion drug, the mifepristone, and there's another M drug, starts with an M, and I can't think of what it is now, as dangerous drugs. I mean, that's what the reclassification in Louisiana has done. So you've got a state there that, picked up right after the overturn of Roe, and they have essentially outlawed abortion in the state of Louisiana. But again, the legal side of that is what's interesting to me, and probably to you as well, in addition to it being, utterly awful that women are having their reproductive rights taken away in that state. There's also stuff going on in Florida. So there's a lot of stuff in the law. We'll get to that. And by the way, in a good way, something good that's happening under this Biden, I believe it's the Justice Department that stepped forward with this. The breakup of Live Nation We will touch on that. You know, Live Nation is this huge company that manages big venues and entertainers and ticket sales. And it's suggested, and this is what is the kind of the breakup part, that in so doing, they're making a bunch of agreements, collusive agreements, effectively, that prevent open competition. Screw the consumer. Without competition, you have none. And you essentially have Live Nation having taken over or monopolized much of the live entertainment world. I want to talk to David Katz about that. So I got a lot of stuff to get to Katz with, and that will be coming up in the second hour. How about a shout out? Come on, Tony.
Big shout out.
Romania Animal Rescue. For $20, a super sticker getting us started. We are a crowd-funded show, and damn it, love you, Romania Animal Rescue.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Romania Animal Rescue, Inc. Check them out. If you care about animals, you care about the rescue world, and it's not just limited to the U.S., how about Romania Animal Rescue, Inc.? Yeah. And Pamela Kirby.
Big shout out.
Big shout out with a 10 spot. Thank you, Pamela. Wow. I love it. Pamela Kirby's on board. Look at all the people who are into the super stickers and super chats early. I love it.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Oh, then prevaricating is a ding word. Who said prevaricating? Did somebody say it? I didn't say it. I don't think Kim said it.
No, but it's great.
I love it. Prevaricating, doesn't it mean exaggeration bordering on falsehood? Doesn't it? Something like that. No?
It was Teacher Lori.
Teacher Lori. I don't remember her saying explicitly that she would not vote for him. I only remember her prevaricating when asked that. Teacher Lori, who likes to jump on me occasionally. I'm not sure the prevaricating is the right word there. It is a ding word, though. That's absolutely true. Tell me Google it, Kim, real quick, and then I'll get into things.
Google it. I was already doing it.
Okay.
But it doesn't give the meaning here on dictionary.cambridge.org.
Well, what would you expect from anything that says dictionary? It's no wonder they don't give the...
To avoid telling the truth or saying exactly what you think, he accused the minister of prevaricating.
I see.
Synonym, equivocate.
To be deliberately ambiguous or unclear in order to mislead or withhold information. There you go. Thank you. So, I guess, fabrication or fabricating means lying. Prevaricating usually suggests some kind of, again, lie adjacent is the way I always thought of it. But anyway,
which is different than giving someone the runaround and not really answering the question, putting,
that would be obfuscation or exactly.
Yeah. I feel like I'm ready for the SAT exam now. Bring it on.
This is really something. What is a synonym for prevaricating? It softens the bluntness of lie by implying, quibbling, or confusing the issue is what we're seeing up on the screen.
Lori's use of it would be appropriate.
Actually not, Kim. As usual, you're sorry, Kim, but no, I wouldn't say that. I would say that, again, I think my characterization is a fair one. You're not coming right at it as a lie. You're kind of sidling up to a lie. But anyway, to Kim's point, is Teacher Lori's use of prevarication correct? I don't know. I don't mess with Teacher Lori. Always listen to the teacher, says Doug. Yeah, all right. I'm Kim's volume is very low, says Mo Direct. What's the story on that, Tony? This is your department.
Thanks, Tony.
It might be a little. Let me check.
Oh my God. I
It's
can't
maxed
believe
out
we're...
in StreamYard, so.
So Kim, turn it up, please. Damn it, turn it up.
Why are you yelling?
We did something different with the board yesterday here, so if the...
Your volume sounds great.
Okay. Mine's probably the important one.
What?
Only when that matters.
No, I also get from shadow producer Calvin Wong that he hears Kim well. So maybe it's on Mo Direct.
All right.
I don't know.
I email
sir?
from Terri Apple saying she didn't get the link.
Oh,
So
good
I'm
times.
sending again.
Yeah, Terri is our guest at the bottom of the hour to talk about AI and the use of AI in voiceover. You know, it's happened with Scarlett Johansson, and Terri is one of the top voice talents in the country. And she also is a producer, writer. So she has like a real vision and framework in which to sort of evaluate the power of AI. So I'd love to talk to her about just that. You know, the use of essentially AI fabricated voices increasingly in different situations, and it would include doubling a celebrity voice. So, but
What are the ethics of that? You know, because Scarlett Johansson says that Sam Altman with OpenAI called her twice and said, "Hey, I really want your voice for this. I really want your voice." Both times she said no. And then he went and found a voice actress that sounds just like her, according to him, unless they recreated her voice with AI. So
let's talk to Terri about this, because that is
fascinated.
what Kim's saying is exactly right. I need to have some Coachella Valley coffee, which I'll have. Go get. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's not just my favorite coffee ever. It's also a coffee that you can purchase and support the show. They are a sponsor of the show. One more quick, if you will indulge me, sip of it, please. It's terrific. I'll keep it hot right over here.
I don't know if it's me, but the harp sounds so loud that it's distorted. To me.
Was it a distorted?
Play a bit hot.
Oh my God! Everything's just different now, Tony.
Which doesn't distort the taste of Coachella Valley coffee.
No, don't try to save it, Kim.
In any way, shape, or form. Because I know that when you took that sip, you really did
I
hear
don't
the
know
harp
what's going
like
on.
it was meant to be heard.
I don't know what's
in your
going on, Tony.
headspace.
This is exactly what I asked you about, Tony. Exactly what I asked you. Now that we've messed with these levels, are these things going to come in too hot? Are they going to be
well.
And I'm getting repeatedly people are saying that Kim is too low. I don't know. Let's get this worked out. I'll give you 9 seconds to work it out, and then I've got to begin.
All right.
But you're still sipping on your coffee, yes?
You have the full 9 seconds. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't, Tony. I really don't. I just don't know. I don't.
You just don't
I don't
get
know.
it, do you? You don't.
I don't.
I just noticed on that picture that was flashed, there's a rainbow on the mountains in Palm Springs. Beautiful. Or
Sound
Coachella
levels are
Valley.
all over the board
Look at that.
today, is what Jim Shields is saying. I know that is beautiful, the mountains.
Yeah, look at the rainbow.
Look good. Instant replay is just a bit hot, but your instant replay plays things at different volumes. Sometimes
No.
we know that.
You do this, Tony. You say everything's fine, and it's not.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm panicking. You don't panic over anything, which is probably smart. Anyway, use Mark T at checkout at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and you'll get 10% off. And it is literally the best coffee on earth. So check it out, and check out everything else there. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
all right.
I'm seeing Terri Apple in the waiting room. Very exciting.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That is terrific. Well, I am excited about Terri as well. We have Terri Apple and David Katz. Terri Apple, a renowned voiceover artist and producer, writer. We'll talk to her about that AI thing. I do want to touch on some stuff going on with the streets and in the courts. I'd like to do it in a segment we call Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people
Pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care.
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
It made big news just a couple of days ago. Scotty Scheffler, the golfer. And he was, as you know, detained by cops there in Louisville. I'm hearing a little, maybe you're Headphones are turned up a little loud. I'm hearing a little echo. But anyway, after being arrested in Louisville last week, golf star Scottie Scheffler has been working with his lawyers to get the situation resolved. And it looked to me as though they were probably going to, drop charges.
What was he stopped for? Was it like a DUI kind of thing?
No, he was stopped because he was trying to get through a barricade that was set up, and it was near the course where he went on, even though this happened at 5 a.m., he went on to make his tee time and to do insanely well that day that he'd been detained. That's how good a golfer he is.
It was kind of one of those, do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal. You surely don't mean the barricade is set up for me.
Right. I think he was
kind of
probably waiting for that. Yes,
okay.
That's right.
Got it.
But the Louisville Police Department has decided not to drop the charges against Scottie Scheffler.
What?
Yeah. They acknowledged that there is, however, no video of the initial incident because the arresting officer didn't turn on his body camera. They said, quote, charges against Scottie Scheffler will not be dropped at this time as the judicial process continues. LPD, Louisville Police Department, says there is still no video of the initial incident, just poll footage of the arrest. Officer Byron Gillis has received corrective action for not turning on the body camera during the incident. That corrective action, I wonder what that is. The Louisville Police Department, you don't turn on your badge cam, your body cam during a critical stop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very high-profile stop. This got national and even international attention. Remember, golf is an international sport. And in any case...
Oh, they took him to jail.
Well, they alleged at the time that he had dragged the officer in the car, that the officer had grabbed onto him. We talked about this the other day. And that he literally dragged the officer... I want to say he was 80 feet or something. They had some, it was, yeah. I mean, it was, now, again, conveniently, there's no body-worn camera footage, so we just have to take the officer's word for it. So, I mean, if it happened the way the officer said it happened, it's likely that he's deserving, Scottie is, of some kind of charges. But we don't really know. And, again, he didn't activate his body-worn camera when he approached the golfer's vehicle, they say. That's an interaction that resulted in the officer allegedly being dragged to the ground. This is a developing story. It happened right outside the gates of the Valhalla Golf Club. It was a dark, rainy morning. And again, the cop says, I was dragged by Scheffler's SUV. So... But there is corrective action, as they're calling it, being taken in the Scheffler case because the officer didn't turn on the camera. Free Scottie, say the T-shirts there. Free Scottie. A political consultant who is behind the fake Biden robocalls is getting a $6 million fine and criminal charges.
Yay!
Good day, sir.
The political consultant who sent artificial intelligence-generated robocalls mimicking President Joe Biden's voice, we're going to talk more about this in a few minutes, was sent to voters ahead of the New Hampshire primary, faces a $6 million fine and more than 24 criminal charges. This came out of the FCC. Stephen Kramer is receiving this fine. It's the first involving generative AI technology. The company accused of these transmission calls is called Lingo Telecom. They face a $2 million fine. And again, this can be negotiated. They can sit down with the government. Maybe they'll never go to trial. But Kramer has admitted orchestrating a message that was sent to thousands of voters 2 days before the first-in-the-nation primary on January 23rd.
If you have to be the first at something... Why not?
Yeah.
The AI fine. There you go.
The 13 felony charges allege that This dude, Kramer, violated a New Hampshire law against attempting to deter someone from voting or using misleading information. He also faces 13 misdemeanor charges, accusing him of falsely representing himself as a candidate. And that is, as Kim says, I mean, that's, I guess, breaking new ground there. Kristi Noem, everybody's favorite dog killer, is now banned from all tribal lands in her home state.
Good day, sir.
Mm-hmm. All of South Dakota's 9 indigenous tribes have voted to ban Governor Kristi Noem.
Don't Native Americans have as part of their religion, they respect the circle of life and creatures and, you know, all these things are very important to them?
I don't know if it's part of their religion. It's certainly part of their culture. Yeah. The Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe Executive Council ruled in favor of barring the Republican governor from its reservation. The Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe sent a readout of its interactions with Noem ahead of the vote. And the president of the nation, Tony Reeder, called an emergency meeting last weekend in response to Noem's comments. The meeting was contentious at times, they say, as some members vocalized their opposition. Then a meeting was set up with the governor's office. That took place on Monday. It was respectful and productive. But the governor was informed that there is a ban from our territories, this is a quote, and the request that, quote, the governor refrain from making future blanket statements that offend the tribes within the boundaries of the state of South Dakota. It was recommended that the governor clarify her statements and issue an apology to all tribal nations for misunderstanding. This had to do with remarks that Kristi Noem made, and these comments, I guess, riled up enough tribal leadership in the state of South Dakota that the governor of the state is being asked not to, and this is a quote, set foot on native land.
I wonder if there's like a picture of her if there's a guard hut at the entrance to the land. You know, there's a picture of her, do not allow in.
I love the idea of a picture with a big red band through it.
Like
I think that actually
an
is really good.
symbol, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to find her actual comments, but I think they were related to immigration, and I'm pretty sure it had something to do with that. Maybe somebody can get me some additional information on it, but I'm fairly certain that it was.
Brian says, "Where are the T-shirts that say Free Kristi?"
Yeah, they're in short supply. They're all being used for Free Scotty. You know, those are all being right. The T-shirt factory couldn't make any more. I almost did this tomorrow.
No gnomes allowed.
There you go. This story is from Florida, everyone. And believe me, I'm so tempted to bump it to tomorrow, but I've already started it, so I'm going to share it with you now. If you are just joining us, and I think this is our second day simulcasting on Facebook.
Yeah.
What a weird 15 minutes of show you have been treated to, everyone. Started with me probably complaining about something, a whole drill down on the word prevaricate. Yeah. Then we got into the fact that nobody's level is where it should be, and I blame Tony for that. But it's not really Tony's fault. No. But I still have to blame someone, and I can't take responsibility for anything, so I blame Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Anyway, and Kim's not hot enough, and all the levels are weird, and we complain about that for a few minutes. And then we do this segment, and this segment seems to be going well, but we do a segment tomorrow called Friday Fabulous Florida. We do it every Friday. That's why we call it Friday Fabulous Florida. And this is a story that would typically appear in that segment with that insanely, excruciatingly long preamble. I will tell you that the Florida mayoral candidate who was just arrested in Florida, was arrested for armed robbery of a Dollar General while in disguise.
What?
He's running for mayor?
Whitfield Leland, 44 years old, arrested following a robbery at gunpoint. Police say that he disguised himself in a Dollar Tree uniform to rob the store. He came in third in the 2022 Tallahassee mayoral election primary. The Whitfield Leland, 44-year-old, stole a shirt of a staff member's before holding up the store at gunpoint. It's weird that you would steal the I don't understand. It's a really bad plan. You know what I mean? I'm going to steal the shirt, and then I'm going to use a gun to hold up the store. I mean, I don't get.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I
I'd be willing to bet there's alcohol involved.
Oh, that could be. I mean, yeah, but it's a lot of planning for alcohol.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
It's everybody's favorite dollar store there on Brevard Street. It happened on Monday morning, and a customer called 911 after he spotted the dude pulling a gun on the terrified manager. He allegedly ransacked the register before ordering the manager to open the safe and lie on the ground. Wow, this guy's bad news. The shaken manager described being in fear for his life at the time of the incident.
Wow.
Then the dude booked from the Dollar Tree store, ditched the Dollar Tree uniform, and police initially believed the culprit was one of the store's employees, began a pursuit on foot. I mean, it kind of worked, threw him off the trail.
He took the shirt, right, yeah.
Right. But they did catch him. He's being held in the Leon County Detention Facility. What do you think his bond is? You held up a Dollar General store with a gun. What do you think they're holding him for? I mean, that should be a pretty heavy bond, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
North of $10,000, right?
Well, yeah.
Easily. It's only $6,000. I don't mean to say only $6,000. Like if you tell me you need to, come up with $6,000, I got to scramble. But I'm still saying it's not.
That's not enough.
The guy held up a store with a gun, and he's only being held for $6,000. I'm just saying that Florida is its own world.
And I bet you he's still running for mayor.
He's
probably saying, well, if Trump can be on trial, certainly so can I.
Yeah. That's Friday Fabulous Florida, wrapped up in Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Hey, That's Rich that I'm going to do before the end of the show. Pretty terrific, and it involves Jim Carrey. And I'm excited about our next segment, which will be a conversation about AI. And the power of AI has now engulfed this world of voice. And I just told you the story about the guy who's facing a $6 million fine from the FCC for generating President Biden's voice with artificial intelligence and telling people not to vote in the New Hampshire primary. The latest, that's the very latest thing that's happened politically that just got handed down, that FCC fine. But additionally, as you're aware, this week, Scarlett Johansson is involved in a controversy that's pretty substantial. Essentially, they have an AI that jacked Scarlett Johansson's voice, so it creates a voice similar to hers, similar enough that Scarlett Johansson, after telling them, don't use my voice, is now considering, I think, legal action, right, Kim? I think she may. We'll see. I think she's threatening legal action anyway. So, Kim, I'm going to get right to Terri. I'm sure that's what you want me to do, right?
Yeah, at the very least, outrage. Yeah. Please. I want to hear what she has to say about this.
Okay, so without any further delay, I'll just say smash the like button like a boss.
Iron rod.
Help us pay for a technology so that all of our levels can be, the same.
The Mark Thompson Show.
She is a renowned voiceover artist, also producer and writer. She's written a book, in fact. I just thought that of the people who might be able to weigh in on this and really give us a perspective of, what it might be like to have your voice jacked, and also the effect industry-wide of voices being taken and imitated by artificial intelligence. She might be really a great authority to check in with. How about it for Terri Apple, everybody? Yeah. There she is in Hollywood.
In Hollywood.
Hello. Yeah. Terri Apple, your voice has been on, I always feel like you're really just sort of top of the game. Your voice has been on all kinds of commercial campaigns, and it's sort of been, it's had a ubiquitous quality. It's on everything. But I think we're in a new world now where people may not even need a Terri Apple. I mean, I'm talking about commercial enterprises that say, hey, we want somebody who sounds like Terri, but we can't afford Terri Apple. So we'll have AI generate a voice similar to Terri Apple. That's kind of what happened with Scarlett Johansson, right?
Yeah, but here's what's interesting, Mark. I think we've been dealing with it behind the scenes for so long. There is, when you're doing commercials and they can't afford Mark Thompson, they're like a Mark Thompson. Everybody in the public doesn't see what we see on scripts. When I was on every single commercial, it was, we want a Terri Apple, but they would not go with a Terri Apple. I had a huge situation I was doing with Barbara Travolta. We did it was the California cheese commercials with the cows. And she says, let's go chew up the cut on the back 40. And I say, what's the hurry? Hit the snooze. That was on air like 8 years. It won a ton of awards. It was on air. All of a sudden I find out they've supposedly replaced my voice. I've had this personal experience for a long time. I was thinking about it. Besides from the AI perspective, this has happened forever. Unless you get to celebrity status, which even if I did achieve that in voiceover world, I tried to take that to SAG-AFTRA to go fight it and say, guys, this is not me. They're using a sound-alike. And no, it was the opposite. I said, guys, this is me. That's my voice. They're using they said, no, a sound alike of you. I never got paid a dime. It's still playing in every component on the computer. So we've been dealing with this for a long time. I guarantee you, I was reading about what Sam Altman said, the CEO of the AI platform for Scarlett Johansson. They were courting her for a number of months. I guarantee you they offered her a deal, but they were going to have to pay her a certain number of residuals, go into a contract. They were then going to steal from her voice anyway. There's no doubt they weren't. If they have the technology to do that, they were going to use her and then lift it, because there's no rule that you can't lift something. For them to say we were never going after us, it was just another voice actor. You know, Mark, that it said on there a Scarlett Johansson voice. Because if I got that said, like Scarlett Johansson, my voice would immediately go into the world of that. We don't want Scarlett Johansson. And come on, think about it when you get hired. I've been hired to loop films in post-production. Demi Moore available. They hired Terri Apple. Now, there was nothing illegal about it. I was being paid, but Demi wasn't available. You know what I mean? So this really has been going on in this world for a very long time. There is a new thing that just passed in September that Fran Drescher said she was really happy about, that it's the only AI studio that's gone into business with SAG-AFTRA, saying they're not going to lift and steal voices. They're going to only use from actors. I also find it hard to believe that that the AI platform is saying they hired another actor. You don't need an actor. I hate to cut my own throat off here. You really don't need another actor in AI. So, I mean, what you're getting is a vocal quality and mood, which is everything I say voiceovers are anything. Anyway, I listen to somebody doing excited, like, hi, welcome to Siri. Forget Siri because that's a real person. But I'm so excited today. In voiceovers, you have to match the mood, which then lends itself to the vocal quality. Not all voice actors get that. You can't go excited, upbeat, California avocados, they're as good as you've heard. You can't go that and go, California avocados, they're as good as you've heard. It doesn't match the mood. So AI is all technical and taking moods to then sell spots. I don't think it's going to take over. It might take over digital advertising, but I think it's already changed the residual spectrum and the way they run. The cycles of run have not been the same for probably 3-4 years, where a voiceover campaign used to go 8-10 years. It now goes one cycle, which is 13 weeks, moves on to something else.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Wow, that was a really great breakdown that all of us just got as to what voiceover performance is. And then you got right at the end toward what voiceover performance is as a living. And you're suggesting, I think, when you talk about the cycles, that they pay a cycle and that gets them out of residuals. I mean, and they can, if voice actors now can be impersonated by AI, that part of it, which could be expensive from a residual standpoint, that part of it's eliminated. So it becomes free. It really represents, but you also just made the distinction. You said, well, I don't think it's really going to replace voice actors. On some level it will, though, won't it, Terri? It may not replace all of them, but...
Yeah. Well, here's what's going to happen, though. You have to have, first of all, if you're think of all the different ad agencies in the world. Okay. You can break it down because voiceovers, Mark, we know fall into so many different categories. You've got the commercial world, which is television and radio up to 60 seconds. Okay. That's the commercial world only. Narration, anything over 60 seconds. Looping, which is going in and being the background on a movie, that may be taken over. So instead of Barbara Harris, having a loop group or any of these loop groups that are paying every voice actor a session fee, union session fee, then maybe that's going to be out the window, because for me to go, hey, Tom, nice to see you, or, a background thing that's looping, that may be out the window. It might be much easier and much cheaper to just go in and do that. But it's like, okay, so imagine green screen for an on-camera thing. You don't have to go run to Brooklyn and then to Prague and then to wherever if you've got a green screen and you can make it realistic enough. What I don't think you're going to be able to change is the humanity of the voice. If you're using it to promote an item or to sell for business, but I don't think you're going to get it. We really haven't figured where it falls into the commercial world. My cousin's a real big mucky muck in the audiobook world. Carly Robbins, she and Hillary Huber are huge. Will that be replaced? Well, you can go on to ChatGPT and you can listen. Instead of me writing a script, Mark, we can go in and go, okay, I want to write about this guy that lives in LA and, is in so they will come up with an entire format. But I talked to two really big mucky mucks that are huge. Michael Bay was one of them, and there was somebody else. They said they've been using ChatGPT at the studios for like 5 years and nobody knows it. Now, they haven't stopped using writers, but what they'll do is they'll go and use that to go through and edit and come up with a concept and an idea. They won't replace a writer with it. But as this gets bigger and bigger, it depends. I mean, I see it, you already see it happening with the animation world, live action, when it's big things like Jennifer Lopez's new movie, Atlas. A lot of that's got to be ChatGPT, and a lot of that's got to be just these voices doing that. But there is no law.
Now, why do you say that? Because so much money is above the line with Jennifer Lopez that you can't afford other actors in the company. Why do you say you have to know so much of it is AI?
Well, and you don't need it. I just watched the trailer on it. It's all green screen. It's just Jennifer Lopez. She's not in space. Writing
she's not.
They spent so much money on that, Mark. That is the first movie. $500 million. She and Elon Musk went to space. They shot there. They left her poster on the. Listen, if anybody was going to do it,
please
she's actually pretty good in it. I have to say, and
only break one illusion at a time, if you would, please.
Yeah. Thank you, sorry.
No, go ahead, but you were just saying that in that instance and others like it, you're saying so much, and I love that you started with the script thing, because you bring in a real writer and they can do a polish, or they can rework, or they can do a heavy edit on something that was generated originally by AI. So you can say, oh, ChatGPT will come up with a C-level script. Yeah, they'll come up with a C-level script that somebody who is actually good can turn into an A-level script. I mean, it's kind of awful that that the studios can now use that technology, but it sounds like it's here to stay.
Let me break another illusion. Behind the scenes, that's been going on for years as well. I wrote something called the Rocky Marciano. My buddy was going after the rights. I had the rights to things in the past, but I really wanted to be involved with this. Rocky Marciano, the only undefeated fighter. And I had the rights to somebody named Aaron Pryor prior to that. No pun intended. Long story short, I rewrote that script probably 20 times. I made a deal. It was my deal that I did it. I wasn't in the writers union. The bottom line is it's sitting at Jeremy Renner's company. It'll probably never get made, but there were if you think the illusion that you're going to write a fabulous script and on that first script or your first run at anything is going to be the thing that gets into studio that you then get full credit. Even if you create a fabulous TV show, somebody else comes on board and you're lucky if you ended up with co-creator or showrunner status or just writing a few episodes. You have to think realistically in this business, and we all have to be team players. You're never, even with the script business, even if you're lucky, if it's a studio film, but I'm not real, there's all these independent, you're better off going streaming now and making it for as cheap as you can and having them see a fabulous product going, how'd you do that? Even in the commercial world, it's better. They're better buying cycle of runs from like a cool little 30-second spot. Nobody's buying 60-second spots anymore, 15 and 30, and everything in the world is branding. But I think the end of the day is really your imprint on something, what ends up being at the end. I mean, the voice does stay, although think about it. Technically, you're talking about your sound issue. I'm thinking to myself, Mark, that's a sound engineer's problem. That's not your problem. You're just the talent. But when you're wearing all the hats, that's the problem. But
when you're a one-man band, right?
When you're running an event, so we're auditioning for something, we're reading. It has specs on it. It says like a Demi Moore, like a Julia Roberts, or it will say warm, smoky, hip. I then have to emulate that. This business. There's 30 of us that sounds similar. So if we don't think everybody in a room, I walked in, everybody used to say to me, oh, I can do Terri Apple. Your house is so hot. I said, well, gee, then go be me. I mean, and I'm just an actor. So what I was doing was just moods, and then going, and changing it up. I mean, next on Fox Sports. I mean, it's all mood. But yes, I don't think people are going to just steal and take if they create a new voice out of it. But look what they're doing when they're building robots and people. They're emulating Elle McPherson, but with Scarlett Johansson's, eyes. They're already doing this with everything.
Yeah, well, I think that what's interesting about that, and so we're talking to Terri Apple, we're just in our last couple of minutes, and if you're just joining us, you started with a concept that I thought was interesting. You said, this has been going on for years. You just kind of revisited it a second ago. Yeah. But I thought you really made a good point when you say that, hey, when you look at a script, it'll say Morgan Freeman type read, or they'll even give you a reference for the read. They'll send you a YouTube link and you can listen to the read, the kind of read they want.
That's so right.
In a sense, I never honestly really thought of that until you just made that point. And so this is a logical, technological outgrowth of that very phenomenon that you were talking about. I just don't know if we have any high ground then. Yeah.
Well, that's what okay, so it's just a new element on it. Lorenzo Music got negotiated out of doing Garfield. Remember Lorenzo? He was, if anybody doesn't remember, he actually created the Rhoda show. No one ever gives him enough credit. He was Carlton the doorman. Hello, this is Carlton the doorman. He came up to me once and said, you're the female version of me. And I go, and I mean, he's like this balding, older, and I'm like, really? Okay, I don't see it, but if you do. He meant voiceover wise, like because I became like the female Tom Bodette. But the bottom line was, he threw that in because it was supposed to be an on-camera actor, and he ended up doing it and got so famous. But he was Garfield the cat. He got left out. His agents negotiated him out of the deal for the next year. Well, that was just a sound-alike of him, just like me in the milk commercial, just like when I know that it's me. There's no fighting power. It's interesting that SAG-AFTRA is now saying, or was saying then, if you're a celebrity, and your voice is lifted. So the term lifted is something different. That used to be that you actually did lay down the all-new BMW 5 Series. And they took that from a session, lifted it without your knowledge, and took, you know what I mean, without paying you. This is something solely different. They can go, we want Terri Apple, but we don't want to pay her. We don't want to pay residuals. Tell me what, she does have a hard fight. Biden, there is a hard fight. The deep fakes, it's going to be tricky as can be. I do not know. That's what's scary to me.
I think that I love that you brought it into the political realm, because I think that a lot of decisions that we're going to make as voters and just in terms of our political leanings and our takes on things that are important to us may be affected by completely concocted images and sounds. And the last thing, back to show business, because it's not just about show business. I really like that you referenced the deep fakes and the Biden thing. But back to show business, I would think that agents and managers would be very concerned with pushing back on this artificial intelligence created voice situation as well. I mean, otherwise, that's a lot of money going out the door to that technology. So
they're really huge on it. They've been fighting this since, they've been fighting this for at least 4 or 5 years. I remember I worked at a big agency, creative artist agency, when I first moved out to LA, but I'd done my first voiceover job at like 16, but I was working for a lit agent. I was like, why am I working for a lit agent? I want to work for talent. Anyway, it's good because I learned so much between my writing and acting. There was a memo that went around. Now, you know, CAA was getting the messages way before anybody else. A message went around and I read it on, and it's, there's something called reality TV coming. Don't worry about it. It's going to be a flash in the pan. That was what went around CAA. And this was before Jim Carrey did that reality movie where he had a thing on him the whole time. And look what reality TV. But did reality TV take over in a way? But I think what happened more is there became the streaming and reality division. But there's still scripted shows. They just created a new world to make money in there as well. It did not take over the entire world of scripted, you know?
Yeah, no,
it really took some money out.
I'd love to see it settle into even that kind of place, because I think there's a real clear threat to, and we don't even know where the threats will end when it comes to AI. Hey, I love that you visited with us. Thank you. Let's make it a regular thing. You also wrote a book, like those people who are aspiring voiceover artists who think there might still be work that AI is not getting. I think you wrote a book about being a voiceover artist. So Google Terri's book. What's that? Why can't I
have
not
a
hear?
new? I have one called voiceovers. This is the old one, but if you see, they're all on. There's like 3 of them, but the newest one is called Voiceovers: Everything You Want to Know About Making Money in the Business. I really like to help people
that's good.
Live all over the country and want to break in. There's so many different genres in this world, you know, that people don't realize. There's the promo world, you know, which you can do non-union. We didn't get into FICOR, but there's so different worlds. But it's a very interesting thing with what's going on with AI for sure.
You can see it. Terri is like a resource on the economics of the business and everything else. Kim, do you have anything before I dismiss the witness, please?
I need to buy her books, because it's funny to me how people think they can do voiceovers. So many people say it's like working in radio, right? Oh, I could do that. If you can speak, you can do it. And they don't understand that there's a whole science to it. There's a whole, you know, there's a lot more than just opening your pie hole and trying to read the lines. So there's the book. Yeah.
Oh, there's the book.
Really
nice
cool.
job, Tony.
So I'm interested in what you have to say. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Make money with your voice.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
So much fun. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah. Great visit. We'll do it again. Terri Apple, everybody. Thanks, Terri.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. A little something different. We always blast around on politics and she knows her stuff.
Man,
she really knows her stuff. Like I you know, she's very polite and nice and generous when she says, you know, Mark, you know, you show up, you're the talent. You're not supposed to worry about the levels and all the stuff. But when you're doing your own thing, you know, you have to wear all those hats, and that's why you wear it. She is somebody who can wear all those hats. She can write it, produce it, figure out the financing for it. She's amazing. I really can't. I really am a guy who just said, show me where the mic is and I'll start talking. I can figure out content, that kind of thing. But I'm not a technical guy. Tony can tell you that better than anyone. So it's really great when I'm really.
You've done a very good job, honestly.
I'm really reminded of how little I know when I talk to Terri Apple, because she's just like, she understands residuals and cycles and all that stuff.
Wow. I want to be her when I grow up.
I'd pick up her book if you really are interested and sincere about it. I would pick up her book. I'll bet you there's some great stuff in there. She's a very talented person. Smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
We try to give you, a little. I understand we are news and politics centric on this show, as we were on the radio show that birthed this show, KGO Radio. But we try to give you some stuff that you might not hear elsewhere. And so, in that spirit, it was fun to talk to Terri Apple about this whole thing with Scarlett Johansson. And, we talked we talked to our pal, Josh Robert Thompson. He doubles Morgan Freeman's voice. Now, he doubles Morgan Freeman on movies when Freeman's not available to loop something. Or in what they call ADR, which
so
is
good at it that you actually are the real stand-in.
Yeah, he's
That's
amazing.
Cool.
He's amazing. And then he books stuff with Morgan Freeman's voice, and he'll book commercials, and he'll do like a Visa commercial or whatever it'll be with a Morgan Freeman voice. Now, would you say, hey, that's not cool? It's not AI generated. He's a real actor, but he's doing an impression. A spot-on, perfect impression of Morgan Freeman. So that's what I thought was interesting about the conversation with her in part, was that she made me remember, oh, yeah, that's right. Basically, we're all saying and all doing some version of trying to give the client what they want, which is a sound, right? Which is a sound of enthusiasm or intensity or dark, scary, whatever right? And or up and happy, and then also a timbre of voice. Is it low? Is it resonant? Is it young? Is it, and so you realize, wow, there's a lot that AI could do.
Yeah.
Just saying. So, Kim's News, and then David Katz, the great former federal prosecutor. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would, please. The likes help us in the world of YouTube. So we'll rock with some Kim, and then Katz joins Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Everybody take a sip together. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, my God. My Coachella Valley coffee. I love it.
Okay, that's
all right,
good.
More on
I think
Coachella Valley coffee.
We're ready for some news. Awesome.
Yes.
We'll dig right into the college protests. Colleges facing a disturbing spike in anti-Semitism, that according to Northwestern University President Michael Schill. The president testified before lawmakers on Capitol Hill today during a hearing on pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses across the country. Demonstrations against the Biden administration's response to the Israel-Hamas war erupted in college campuses across the country in recent weeks. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Police Department is now on tactical alert after a new encampment was set up on the campus of UCLA by pro-Palestinian activists. They're building barricades not far from where police removed an encampment of demonstrators who occupied that area for weeks. The new action comes as UCLA's chancellor, Gene Block, is in Washington, D.C., being questioned by Congress about security failures. And hundreds of Harvard grads are protesting the university's commencement ceremony after some pro-Palestinian demonstrators were not allowed to receive their degrees. The graduates walked out of the commencement this morning chanting, "Let them walk," in reference to the 13 undergrads who the Harvard Corporation voted to bar from graduation. Those protesters marched to the Harvard Epworth United Methodist Church, where they staged a people's commencement. Multiple student speakers at the official commencement ceremony also mentioned the ongoing campus protests.
Man, this campus stuff is just getting insane.
It really is. At UC Santa Cruz, they're doing at least 2 more days of the remote learning because of protests going on there.
I don't blame them. I've told you about the intimidation that my friends kids have experienced, it's the real thing. And my greatest fears for what would happen on college campuses are being realized. It's really scary.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is facing backlash from Senate Republicans over his plan to put a bipartisan border bill to a vote for a second time. Tennessee Republican Marsha Blackburn called the vote scheduled for today a political stunt, and she vowed to block it. The bill would reform the nation's asylum laws and allow President Biden to close the border once migrant crossings reach a certain threshold. Democrats accuse Republicans of killing that bill back in February. Now, it comes back again. There are, unfortunately, 9 people who are dead and a Mexican presidential candidate now hospitalized after a stage collapsed in heavy winds at a campaign rally yesterday. The state's governor said at least 54 people were injured and rescue operations were working to save people trapped underneath that fallen stage. As you mentioned earlier, Mark, Nikki Haley says she will indeed vote for former President Trump instead of President Biden in the 2024 election.
Wow,
Haley,
the agent of chaos that she identified as such. She's going to go with him now, huh?
She's going to go with the agent of chaos. One wonders if perhaps she's not trying to, I don't know, what do you think she wants? Secretary of State?
I thought she wanted Veep. Yeah, I thought she wanted Vice President, but I've been talked out of that sort of by many of my people who are like big political types. But here's why I think here's why I think Trump would want her.
Okay.
Because she comes with votes.
Yeah.
She comes with a lot of votes. One of the things we talk about is how many voters went for her when they had both on the ballot. She was still on the ballot, not as a viable candidate in Indiana, and she got 20% of the vote there. Yeah. So I'm just saying that's why Trump's people would want Nikki Haley on the ticket. Now, again, I don't know what her long game is, and I don't, I'm hearing, well, she's setting herself up for 2028, but I think there's a lot about Nikki Haley that the Trump camp would want. And she certainly has modified her position, to put it politely, such that she could be considered someone who could play nice with Trump long enough to get him to the Oval Office.
Well, yes. She didn't formally endorse Trump, we'll say that.
That's
but
true.
She did say she puts her priorities on a president who is going to have the backs of our allies. Ask yourself, who has the backs of our allies? And hold our enemies to account. Like Vladimir Putin?
Well, I mean, these are platitudes. Platitudes is a dang word.
It's nonsensical. She
Yeah,
added that Trump has not been perfect on some policies, but she called President Biden a catastrophe.
What policies are those? The policy of leaving office when you've lost the election?
That's a great policy. I like that one. Here in California, prepare to say goodbye to more plastic bags. California lawmakers are closer to closing a loophole in the state ban that began years ago. It allows stores to use thicker, reusable bags made out of plastic film. But Cal Recycle says they aren't actually recyclable, and they report an increase in those bags ending up as waste. 2 bills aim to end this exception, and both are advancing after one passed the state Senate. The other made it through the Assembly. So those thicker bags may go bye-bye as well. Speaking of college, though, there's a seal of the great University of California. Oh, look, and it's transparent, so you can still see us. Hello. A bill banning legacy admissions at all California colleges is moving forward. It passed the state assembly, and it now heads to the state senate. Only some schools still consider donor or alumni ties in admitting students. The lawmaker behind the bill says if you work hard, you get good grades, and you have a well-rounded background, your spot should not be taken by someone else just because their family can write a big check or is a graduate of that school. So, I don't know.
So much of higher education is about raising money. And when you see these various university presidents, they're presidents and they're deans oftentimes because they can raise money for the school. And so when you get to legacy admissions or admissions generally, if there's enough money involved, you can walk right through the front door regardless of GPA. And there is chapter and verse on this at the highest levels of education in America. And in a way, I think they may try to get rid of it, but these schools want money more than anything. I mean, it is the United States of America, after all.
So I'm not advocating for legacy admissions, but I have heard the argument that, the school needs money. And so what's wrong with maybe taking a handful of admissions that can maybe fund scholarships or fund for others that wouldn't be able to afford full tuition?
Oh, that's certainly, I'm certainly for that. I mean, if that's what we're talking about, scholarships. And even so, I mean, I don't mean to be too down on it either. Hey, my mom went to this school and she really liked it, and I'm going to try to go to that school. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with, because your mom went there, that your application gets a real look, So I'm not completely down on it. I just feel as though the process shouldn't be too rigged, I guess is what I'm getting to.
I have an art story. Are you ready? We saw recently the painting of King Charles. Now here comes this one. I don't know if you can see that. This is a new portrait of Catherine, Princess of Wales, and it's bringing out a lot of criticism. This painting by British Zambian artist Hannah Uzor features on the cover of the July issue of Tatler magazine. Now, Uzor said she studied pictures of the princess in the process of creating this work, that Princess Catherine never sat for any portrait, but a lot of people have some criticism of this, saying it doesn't even look like her. It's not an official portrait, but it's interesting.
I don't think it looks bad, does it?
It doesn't look like her.
Oh, really?
It doesn't capture her essence at all. Mm-mm.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, I guess putting her on the cover of a magazine is a statement on what she's had to deal with as far as the press and constantly being, attacked for this or that. But it doesn't look like her to me at all. Mm-mm.
It doesn't capture her essence.
No, it doesn't. No.
I would not want my essence captured on a, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's something I don't want in a painting.
No?
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's, now that is adorable.
Doggy.
Cute little doggy.
I put this picture up because we're talking about dogs, but this story really has to do with a new airline called Bark Air. They're launching their first ever airline catered to dogs. Started by a pet company, Bark, the airline claims to revolutionize flying for dogs. They launched today. A domestic flight costs about $6,000 a ticket. International tickets cost about $8,000 each. Flights for May and almost all of June are sold out.
Wow.
The company offers the White Paw service with earmuffs and treats for its pups. So...
That's
Bark Air. People will pay a lot for their comfort of their canine companion. Yeah. Maybe Gnome should have done some research on that before she, bragged about how much people love their animals, this type of thing. Yeah. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Oh, it's the good stuff. Mm-hmm.
Best coffee there is. Having a cup of it right now. I keep it hot with a little lid that I keep on it. But.
Yeah. I like how you put the sticker on the bottom of your cup, too.
This entire cup has been rigged off of the website, getmarkmerch.com, where I got the sticker on the bottom and the sticker on the side.
Yeah. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What are you
because
drinking
our
today?
standard issue mugs are black. The Mark Thompson Show mugs, the official mugs, are black at getmarkmerch.com. But you can take the stickers that come off the website and you can put them on anything you want. And so I put them on the...
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you drinking the Elgato Espresso?
I think I'm drinking the Ocotillo.
Oh,
it's so good.
Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good. And
make sure you get the 10% off though, because the stuff costs a couple dollars. So definitely get yourself a discount. It's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T is the discount code for 10% off. Handcrafted in the Coachella Valley. It is all hand roasted. It is all people involved. They have not automated. They are magnificent in that way. Everything they do is crafted for you. And that's why it costs a couple of dollars. It's a boutique a roaster, and as you know, the way they source their beans, the way they get their beans, it's done at the highest levels. You will love it. And there are all kinds of different beans, and there's tea, and they're quite the operation. I mean, that's why I can't believe they haven't gone automated. They said, no, we hand roast it for a reason because we want to be able to keep track of the roasting and look at temperature and blah, blah, blah. It's like, wow, amazing. So it's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. But again, get yourself a 10% discount, Mark T, at checkout for 10% off on anything and everything on the site.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Thank you all for being here. I guess we're live streaming now on Facebook. That was a shot at the Get Mark merch. Is that what it was? Thank you, Tony. Those are the sticker sheets you can get, and you can put them anywhere and cut them out, and then you can do what I did with this mug, and I put a little thing on the bottom. So, you know, you can run your own game. Is Katz ready? I thought I heard him enter. Is it true or not?
Yeah,
no?
he's there.
No?
Yeah, yes,
oh, he is.
yes.
Okay. He is, so let me just, again, thank you. So I think it's our second day live streaming on Facebook, so maybe a couple of you are new, and you're about to get a super big treat. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy's the former federal prosecutor. You've seen him and heard him across the world. The English-speaking world goes to him for so many different things related to the law. He provides clear legal analysis on everything from the Supreme Court to the Trump cases. How about it for, again, the former federal prosecutor now working as a defense lawyer? He's David Katz, everyone. Hi, David.
Hi, great to be with you.
Great to see you, sir. I want to start with the Supreme Court. I promise I'll get to Trump, but we have a lot of stuff to get to. And I'm not going to start with the Alito flag, but we can maybe touch on that. I do want to ask you about the case that relates to the South Carolina redistricting, because these are the representatives that South Carolinians would then send to Congress to represent them. So the districts and the way they're drawn, the gerrymandering, is very much a part of who ends up having the power in the state of South Carolina, who gets the most representation. The Supreme Court has overruled a lower court that said the gerrymandering in South Carolina was too intense and racially biased.
Well, this was a 6-3 decision. It was actually written by Justice Samuel Alito in the unedifying spectacle that all 6 Republicans voted in a way that really helped the Republicans, the 3 ones who were picked by Democratic presidents, voted in a way that would have helped Democrats. And there was a 3-judge trial that was held in South Carolina where there was extensive evidence, Mark. And the issue was, first of all, do you assume that legislators, when they redistrict, are acting in good faith? And the answer is yes, you assume that they're acting in good faith. And so then the question is, did they base this change on race, or did they base it on Democratic voting? They claimed throughout all the evidentiary hearings and trials of this matter before the 3-judge federal court that it was just based on Democratic voting statistics. Charleston has a large Black population, and it votes generally very Democratic. What they did is it was a swing district, very close. It's the one that Nancy Mace, who I saw on Bill Maher and who's become sort of a celebrity in Republican politics, she was sort of the elected in this swing district. And either side could win it. And that was why she was pretty moderate at that time. What the Republicans did, who controlled the redistricting process in South Carolina, what they did is they took about 60,000 voters who were Democratic voters, and they stuck them in a very heavily Black district. So that made that heavily Black district not 80% Black, but 90% Black, not 80% Democratic voting about, but 90% voting Democratic. And that left Nancy Mace's district with about a 12% Republican majority. Voila. What used to be a swing district, very winnable by a Democrat, became like a 62% Republican district, sure to be won by Nancy Mace. As soon as that decision came along that way, Mark, guess what? Nancy Mace started to be a big Trump backer, right? Because with a 62% Republican majority, she could do that. So the 3-judge court said, no, we don't believe, despite all the evidence, that you were acting in good faith. We find, based on this huge evidentiary record, we find that they were picked because they were black. Now, you might say what difference it makes. But under the Constitution, there has to be equal protection. Under the Voting Rights Act, there are certain protections for black voters. And so those two can be in tension. In fact, a case very much like this, Mark, came up 7 or 8 years ago. RBG was then on the court, and the court said, no, this almost same or parallel situation, we do not find that they were acting in good faith. We find that they did pick voters, not because they were Democratic voters, but because they were black. And they stuck them all in this district, and that failed to live up to the Voting Rights Act. Now, without RBG on the court, the way it's voting now with Barrett, 6-3, they overruled the 3-judge federal panel, and they said, no, this is just fine. This 62% Republican district can stand. And that's it. It's very disheartening, but that's what just happened today.
Yeah, that's breaking news of the moment. And as you say, it's both disheartening and it's politically partisan based on any kind of objective reading of things.
That you can do. If you're only politically partisan, that you can do. If you're discriminating against black voters as black voters, that violates equal protection.
I see. From the legality of it, I guess that's it. I don't mean to diminish that. I'm just suggesting that philosophically you could see what was happening. I mean, it's a power grab. And then, so staying on the court with this Supreme Court Justice Alito and more revelations about these flags. I guess this guy really likes flags. And his latest is this second flag, which was a symbol for a hard right religious position that was part of the Stop the Steal campaign. In other words, the flag was present at the J6 riot. And, this is not the upside down American flag. This is a different flag. And it was flown by Alito. Now, he hasn't produced the, I didn't know about the flags, my wife handles the flags type explanation on this one. But I'm wondering, are we making too much of this, David? I don't mean to be, I'm clearly against this guy as a wild partisan, and he represents everything wrong, I think, with the country these days. This is my position, my opinion. But are we being too harsh? Should he be allowed to fly whatever flag he wants, even if it's a controversial one?
Well, when Alito first went on the U.S. Supreme Court, there was a big reception in Washington, D.C., at which both he and I were present. And a photographer caught us at an angle where he thought we looked enough like each other that he ran a photograph with the line "separated at birth." So wow. I want all of your viewers to know that you have David Katz, not Sam Alito, on your program. Someone actually pointed that out to him, another former law clerk for my judge. He was pretty drunk at the time. And he said to Justice Alito, I've always said, Your Honor, that you and my friend David Katz look alike. And Alito said, no, your friend is much better looking. So I'm sure he's a personally charming guy. They said that Rehnquist was the most charming person you'd ever want to meet. But no, Alito is he's all wrong on this, Mark. A judge and a justice, they have to fight against any biases that they have. And they have to project to the public that they're fighting against those biases in good faith, doing it hard, taking it seriously, not just voting their political and philosophical preferences. And to throw it in the face of people with a flag like that was brandished right on January 6th in this riot and marauding. 5 people died. They almost overturned an election and our democracy and the peaceful transfer of power. To put up their flag.
You can see 2 of the flags there in that picture, one lower left and one lower right.
Right, and to put up those flags, and the whole world knew that those flags had been unfurled and shown at the January 6th riot because the whole world had seen those pictures. And if he's going to blame this one on his wife too, it's just really, it's what's the word? It's stand up, be a man up, say, look, I put the flag up there. It was terrible judgment. But now he's kind of stuck, right? Supreme Court justice or not, once you start telling a story, the story may catch up with you. If his wife put that one up, what was he lying then? Is he lying now? Is he clamming up now because he gave an explanation that's kind of gone awry the first time? And of course, there's no code of ethics for the Supreme Court that has any teeth that anyone can enforce. We've talked about that. And this is just showing both him and Thomas. He's also, some people call him Salmon Alito because he went on that huge junket to salmon fish out in Alaska, and he said there was room on the plane. So, Mark, I know what you and I are both doing now is we're inviting these people with these huge private planes and reminding them that there's an extra seat. And they're taking you and me to Alaska. We don't have a swing vote on the U.S. Supreme Court, but they're taking us to Alaska, right? I mean, it's smarming.
It is. It's open corruption. And in this case, as you suggest, it reflects a political bias and a philosophical bias that we've known about. But to have it in your face like this, I mean, even Clarence Thomas didn't drive that huge RV bus that he was given. He doesn't drive it to work every day. I mean, he doesn't like put it in our face. And he is another level of corruption. I mean, huge payoffs and the property purchase for his mother and all this sort of thing. But again, just to review, Alito is that guy who, in that commencement speech, says the freedom of religion is imperiled in this country. So he is making decisions for the hard right and really answers to the religious right in a way that I think we'll continue to see reflected in his decision making. I want to get also to some other cases, and then I will get to Trump at the end, I promise everybody. But there was some news of the moment that was related to monopolies and breaking up the power of a major broker when it comes to live entertainment and tickets. And that is Ticketmaster and Live Nation. Now, this is not a Supreme Court case, but this was a situation where the Justice Department is moving against these various companies that they feel either reflect a monopoly or are close to being a monopoly on the various areas in which they operate. Can you speak to that?
Mark, this is Live Nation Entertainment, the huge one, the dominant one. They are a monopolist.
And the notion here is that they not only control the venue, but they control relationships between the ticket selling for the venue and the performer at the venue and the venue itself. Meaning, if you control all of these things, you have incredible leverage to force all kinds of deals when it comes to how much compensation an artist gets, how much compensation a ticket broker gets, or in other words, you control all aspects of this. This is a monopoly, as you say.
Well, in 2010, this was when Obama was president. And it's not a knock on Obama. He did a lot of things that I certainly agree with. Obamacare to start off with, which the nation needed for all of those decades. But this is one of those things the consumer groups told him at the time that he should not have his attorney general for the for antitrust enforcement. They should not approve this merger. And they approved the merger over the objections of the usual consumer groups that said that this was going to stifle competition. It was going to lead to a monopoly, and it would drive up the prices of tickets because the tour promoter, and they also did a lot of handling of management of artists. So they would have the tour, they'd have the management, and now they were the ones selling the tickets. And so obviously they could exclude competitors. And they did. And the reality is that there has not been more competition in that field. The price of tickets, as everybody knows, has skyrocketed. And these groups, they don't even need to be threatened, Mark, because they give in, because they know if you're going to do, let's say, 30 different venues, and you're going to have Live Nation promote it, and you may give them a hard time about whether Ticketmaster is going to handle the tickets, somehow or other, they know they're going to be bad results. And we've seen the prices go up, and we've seen there be less competition. And now with the Justice Department, this is Merrick Garland now. He just issued a statement which he said that this Live Nation has to be broken up. It has. This is, antitrust law. They broke up a lot of the big monopolies. They broke up the phone company. That's why we have so much competition in phones and so many great strides forward with our phones and iPhones and everything else. That never would have happened if they hadn't broken up the monopoly that the old phone company used to have. And so I think it's important. I agree with Merrick Garland on this, that at the very least they should have to divest, that is to spin off Ticketmaster. So yes, they can promote their tours and they can do management, but some other company, some completely separate company has to handle the ticketing because they just have too much power and they exclude competition and they drive up prices.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, Live Nation owns Ticketmaster, so it's that's why we talk about them as separate things, or I do anyway.
That was the merger that was approved in 2010 over the objections of the consumer agencies. It was approved by the Obama administration, and that's what happened. It's not like nobody predicted this was going to lead to exactly what it led to. A lot of people said that it would. They said they'd have really tough enforcement. It probably didn't help that they had 4 years of Trump. You can't imagine that there was much enforcement of the supposed enforcement mechanisms under Trump. And here we are. I don't think I need to tell people the prices are astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, you complain about prices, guys. This is what happens when you don't have any regulation. These are corporate regulations. These are corporate protections. You can call them regulations, and there's this stink on regulations, but these are protections. There are protections for the environment that are associated with regulators. There are protections for consumers that are associated with the regulators. And just as we spend a beat on this, David, I want to mention that Apple is being sued by the U.S. government. Google is being sued by the U.S. government, and Amazon's being sued by the U.S. government. These are all cases that are similar, and I wonder if you could remark just on this sort of general attempt to rein in some of these huge corporate entities by a government right now, an administration right now, that would seem to be at least a little bit more consumer-friendly.
Well, this trust busting started under the Republicans, who were the progressives then. Teddy Roosevelt, huge trust buster. But it just seems that now the Republicans are not that into it, which they ought to be, because as the self-proclaimed party of small business, small business gets completely crushed. Think of every small business that's been crushed from all of these trusts, going back to the railroad trusts, all the famous one, Carnegie and the Steel Trust. And now, of course, we have these trusts right now. So I think it's another reason to vote for a Democratic president and to reelect Biden, because he's doing something about this. We didn't hear about vigorous antitrust enforcement to help consumers and to help the little guy and to help small business. Yes, small business. You're getting crushed by these huge corporate takeovers, and then you get excluded from business opportunities. You hear about how, like, the advertising, I haven't really followed it closely, but apparently these huge social media companies, they totally disfavor certain people. They bring others along. People say they're not, the kind of allegations that they're making against them. So these efforts by Biden and his administration, I think, are very, they're well taken. And I think all the lawsuits that I've heard about so far to break up these big companies, to make them divest things that make it less competitive and that raise prices for the consumer, I think they're all for the good. And I think that nowadays, at least, it's the Democrats who are looking out for the little guy and small business in this antitrust area.
We have insanely corporate-friendly justices on the Supreme Court. Couldn't this all just be appealed to that level?
Well, yes, but they have antitrust laws that if the administration enforces them, it's hard to imagine the justices, overruling antitrust enforcement. There'll usually be a trial. The trial will find the anti-competitive effect. Just like with South Carolina, there is an assumption of good faith by the government. So it's hard for the person attacking it, like let's say Apple or Live Nation, end up losing one of these cases. And yes, they're going to try to scurry to the U.S. Supreme Court with, their incredibly good lawyers. But at the end of the day, they have to show that the administration, made some error. There was some problem in the findings, that they weren't acting in good faith. And so, and you look at justices like Roberts and Barrett, I think that they would go with the other three. If there's a good record, they would affirm the breakup. And then sometimes these companies agree to it. That's what you have to. Live Nation actually agreed to what happened back with Obama in 2010. And they said there'd be all these tough regulations, and the tough regulations weren't enforced. And that's been pointed out. And there were also some Senate hearings where actually these anti-competitive actions by these huge corporations, they said, you've done one thing that very few people can do, unite the Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate, saying that it's an outrage what they do with prices and how they stifle competition.
I want to now pivot to a listener question. I want to try to find it. Question for David Katz from Debbie. I encourage everyone and remind everyone that you can email us, and I will integrate any questions you have or remarks you have that you'd like me to push to David at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. So Debbie writes, question for David Katz. If a jury in the Trump trial returns very, in capital letters, quickly with a decision, or takes a very long time, in capital letters, to make a decision, can either time factor in the Trump case have an impact on the judge and his decision for sentencing? That's interesting. I would first ask you, can you tell anything by the length of deliberation, and then speak to the judge and the leanings?
Well, one thing that's been remarkable to me, because you have a jury that's not sequestered, and you had all these issues, including with the gag order. Trump was not supposed to talk about the witnesses, even the witnesses who were talking about him, like Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. But he was certainly not supposed to talk about jurors. That was always completely out of line. And the concern was that these jurors were out there, and we shouldn't keep them out there too long, that there was a certain danger of them being interfered with, tampered with, that they'd be subjected to the news. So I was surprised that this judge delayed the final arguments for a week. I was just really surprised by that. And some people thought that the judge got played by Trump's side, which acted like they were going to put on a substantial defense and then put on about a day at most of defense, less than a day of defense. I think the judge should not have committed himself that he was going to have the arguments next week. He should have held back on that and seen how the thing played out. And when he saw the evidence closed as soon as it did, he should have said, gentlemen and ladies, get your arguments together. We're arguing tomorrow morning. That's what would have happened in a normal case. In the normal criminal case, the pressure on trial lawyers is just overwhelming. And especially when you're, let's say, like you're one criminal defense attorney, as I am, in some cases, there'll be 2, maybe even 3 prosecutors, agents on it and stuff. Then the need to get ready like overnight, day after day, is just something that makes you a good trial lawyer or not, There's just a huge amount of pressure. You have to deal with it. You have to get ready on the facts and the law. And that they were given a week in a case like this, where there are great lawyers and lots of them on both sides, I was really surprised. And it just sort of made it sound like, well, was the judge really that concerned about the jurors being out there that long? Why did he give them a whole extra week to do this? And the idea that it would have been a 3-day weekend in between, well, I mean, my goodness, a lot of judges take off Friday afternoon. So there's 2.5 days in between. There's not a 3-day weekend in between, but there's a 2.5-day weekend in between the deliberation. So that really surprised me. In terms of how long the jurors are out, sure, a good criminal defense attorney would say, well, I know they found my client guilty, but my God, it took them 5 days to do it. And, you should take it into account, Your Honor. And the judge has heard the evidence, so that makes usually little impression. And the prosecutor says, this guy went to trial. He wasted everybody's time. He was clearly guilty, and the jury came back in 45 minutes. The prosecutor is going to make that argument on the other side. But I don't think at the end of the day, it amounts to that much. If they come back with a note, the judge will answer the note. That'll be a written answer. They don't have conferences or chambers conferences. The judge is to have no interaction with the jurors whatsoever off the record. So the litigators will know what the question is, and they'll all agree on an answer. They may not agree on it, but they'll all confer on the answer. The judge, after hearing their arguments, will decide how to answer the questions. I expect there will be jury notes that'll be answered. And then if they come back with a jury note that we're hung, the judge will give them what's called an Allen charge and tell them, keep trying, listen to other people's opinions, stay open-minded. And if that goes on and on and on, then, after, 2 days after getting the first note that says we're hung, judges tend to realize that they really are hung. And at that point, you'd have a hung jury.
The chances of a hung jury, can you rate them?
Well,
all you need is one dissenter who just can't be moved, right, David?
I think there's very little chance that he will be acquitted of everything. I think there's a very good chance that he will be convicted of the misdemeanor.
But the misdemeanor isn't the statute of limitations up on the misdemeanor anyway?
Very good question. In which case, that charge will be dismissed because of all the misdemeanor is just sort of standing there as an underpinning for maybe a felony, maybe not a felony. So they might hang on the felony. I mean, I think they're supposed to return a verdict on the misdemeanor, which will be guilty. And then they'll go on to the felony. Now, the problem that I have with the felony, and I want people to hear the fact that I've listened to the case, I followed it. I'm actually here in New York, and I think that he ought to be found guilty. I think from what I've heard, if I were on the jury, I would be, I think, really fair about it, unbiased about it. And from the evidence that I've heard and what I understand the instructions are going to be, I would find that he was guilty. And I would find that he was guilty because I think that he knew he was violating and intended to violate state campaign financing law and federal campaign financing law. And I don't know if they really got into the tax records, but if they got into the tax records and they showed me that he had written off the whole $420,000 as being all a legal expense, then I would believe that he was trying to commit tax fraud too. I'm not sure they even really presented that. The problem that I have, because everyone has a right to be treated equally. The rule of law applies, right? Nobody's a king. No one's above the law. No one's below the law. So here's the problem that I have. All that they're saying in this case is that he falsified business records, the misdemeanor, in furtherance of some unlawful conduct. I think it should be specified. I think they should say to them, then find what unlawful conduct it was. The three possibilities are he knew and intended to violate, the unlawful conduct was knowing and intending to violate state campaign financing laws, 2, federal campaign financing law, 3, state and federal income tax laws. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, if you find him guilty of some unlawful, go on and decide, was it state campaign, federal campaign, or was it taxes? And the problem that you would have, and what Trump wants so bad, and the reason he's fighting for what I'm actually thinking makes sense as a matter of law, is to say, if only 4 of them think it was state, and only 4 of them think it was federal campaign, and another 4 think it was tax, all 12 having agreed he committed some unlawful conduct, that he would then have a hung jury because they would not have unanimously agreed on the aim. But I believe, and I know it's controversial, but I believe that they should go on as a matter of due process, as a matter of fairness in our courts. And I know people always say, well, Trump isn't fair to other people. Why on earth, Mr. Katz, do you always want to be fair to Mr. Trump? But the problem that I have is, let's assume for a second, unlawful purpose. Why would you ever falsify a business record? It's only a misdemeanor, Mark. Why would you ever falsify it? Now, you can imagine you're having a reunion. You want your friends to see how successful you are. And so you have the guy come by at the reunion and look at your business records. And they show you only made 100,000. But you put down there $1 million. And all you want to do is impress your friend. You'd be good for the misdemeanor, right? You wouldn't be good for the felony. You didn't have any bumped up unlawful purpose. All you want to do is impress a friend, okay? Come on, that is not what the legislature, so you want to hide a dalliance somehow. So you put in the business records that you were somewhere as an alibi about a dalliance that you don't want whoever's looking at the business records to know about. That's really what the legislature thought the difference was. The misdemeanor is the person who just wants to impress a friend. But anything else is a felony because anything else supposedly has an unlawful purpose. You were violating the tax laws. Why would what do you think the average person falsifies business records as a misdemeanor to do? For the unlawful purpose of misstating it as taxes. And you don't have precedents. You don't have other people like Trump who were convicted of this. And so you have a precedent over which instruction they gave. Anyway, what the judge is going to do today is not do what Trump wants, not do what I think would be probably fair as a matter of due process. And guess what? That's why I think it's very likely that Trump will be found guilty of the felony. And then that'll be his issue on appeal. Just like Harvey Weinstein had his issue on appeal and won 4-3, this will be Trump's issue on appeal, that he should have had a less vague, more specific unanimity instruction. And I think that will be probably his best issue on appeal. And some people say, well, good, that'll be very nice. That'll be after the November election. But people will see right now, and they've heard the evidence. And like I said, I thought the evidence was overwhelming. I thought Michael Cohen did very well on the stand. They were all oohing and ahhing. Oh, how could he have discussed 2 subjects in 96 seconds? You can discuss 3 or 4 subjects in 96 seconds. You can have somebody pass the phone from this body man to Trump. How long does that take to pass the phone? 1 second? So now we're down to 95 seconds that he had to talk to Trump. And they tried to impeach him on it. And then this Costello, oh my God. I tell you, we have 2 rival offices, Mark, the U.S. Attorney's Office in LA and the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, right? And they're sort of known as being kind of like snooty, how great they are and how great all their graduates are, right? Well, 2 of their graduates are Rudy Giuliani and Robert Costello. I don't think that we've ever produced any alumni in the Los Angeles U.S. Attorney's Office. Anyone like those 2?
That is priceless. That really is priceless. Well, you lay it out well, just so I understand it. In this particular instance, and this kind of gets to jury instructions, because I want to ask you about those. In this particular instance, the guy who is on trial, Donald Trump, didn't have to have a specific knowledge of a specific violation that he was going to be in violation of. I'm talking about a specific law, but just a general sense that it could be one of these things. He didn't have to distinguish between state and, as you just kind of laid it out. If you, the jury, feel as though he knew he was doing this in violation of some election law, then that's sufficient for a guilty plea. Is that my understanding now?
Can you give me 1 minute? I need to turn my air conditioner on. Just give me one second.
Yeah, of course. Okay. This is a good, one of the things that I like to do is just review occasionally what I've just heard. So that's what, yeah.
I wanted to do it without the hum, but I was spritzing.
No. Make it so again, I won't restate the entire thing, but I guess what I'm just saying is, so the jury instruction will be, hey, Donald Trump here didn't have to know exactly what law he was violating, state, et cetera, but he had to know the general fact that he was violating some election law. Is that what kind of what the...
He had to have some unlawful purpose. And I really mean this. I'm surprised that they didn't have more evidence. I thought Michael Cohen was going to say, I not only told him that this was, unlawful, but some law. I thought Michael Cohen was going to say, and I'm glad that the prosecution didn't put him up to saying something that wasn't true. I mean, thank God we have a country where that doesn't happen generally. But no, Michael Cohen never said, I told him, we're violating state campaign laws. I never told him we're violating federal campaign laws. I never told him, this stuff has to be disclosed, and it's not being disclosed. Of course, we're not disclosing it. We're saying the exact opposite of it.
But again, David, does he have to have knowledge of it? That's the point. Just even a general knowledge that he's in violation or not. I mean, ignorance is no excuse, I guess, is the point.
Ignorance is kind of an excuse, because if he didn't have any unlawful purpose, if he says, look, his argument's going to be, my goal in all of this was that my wife and family didn't find out that I didn't have shame. And that is not an unlawful purpose. To avoid shame is not an unlawful purpose. And I thought Michael Cohen was going to have more detail. I mean, it was clearly shown that Trump participated in falsifying the business records. That was shown brilliantly by the prosecution, from Pecker, from the National Enquirer, through Hope Hicks. Remember when she says, I'm sorry I hurt you. Because she said, Trump had said, thank God this didn't come out during the election. She quoted him as saying. And they tried to show how meticulous Trump was, to show that he paid $420,000 and didn't know what it was for. He didn't want to pay his dry cleaning bill without seeing how many garments had been dry cleaned. They showed all that great stuff, Mark. So, I mean, I think the evidence was absolutely there. But I was a little surprised that he and Michael Cohen, nobody else ever discussed that this was a violation of any kind of campaign finance laws. That may be obvious. If you're running for president, you've got to make disclosures, and the disclosures have to be accurate. When you say that something was legal expenses, because he's got an argument on that he figured Michael Cohen was doing a lot of work, and maybe it all really amounted to $420,000. Again, they asked that great question, Mr. Cohen, have you ever seen, except on this occasion, Trump ever overpaying for anything? No, he never overpaid for anything. So he knew he wasn't overpaying. He knew what that amount was for. You have Weisselberg, the CFOs, you have his writing, which showed exactly how the money was going to be distributed. And they said, well, Michael Cohen stole from Trump. But in the context of it, you could see why Michael Cohen thought that he really was entitled to more of this and that. Look, he was a thief. He was a liar. He was a perjurer. And I believe that, of course, he had those conversations. I believe that he had that conversation that he said for the 96 seconds. And he told him then, this is exactly how it's going to go down. I just was a little surprised. I mean, as a federal prosecutor, we never would have hinged a case. And of course, the federal prosecutors didn't go on this exact same quantum of evidence against Trump under the Biden administration. They didn't go on this quantum of evidence, this whole case that they went on Trump against in state court. The Fed.
Yeah, by the way, that's worth mentioning because Trump keeps saying it's a Biden case, it's a Biden case, Biden's behind it. Actually, Biden's prosecutors at the federal level passed on it.
Oh, the propaganda that Trump has done, the people showing up in court with the red ties, all of them, it was worthy of Saturday Night Live, which I think was the skit that they did. But no, his spin on the case has just been, terrible. I'm on some of these conservative stations, and of course, they just ask me the reservations that I have. They never ask me, what do you think of the whole gestalt? The whole gestalt is I would have voted guilty after hearing the facts of the law.
But to your point, and then I want to get quickly to jury instructions and let you get on it with your day. Thank you so much. But David Katz, your whole point is essentially they did show the math before Michael Cohen even got on the stand. They showed the math. They showed the notes. Literally, they showed the math, the annotations from Weisselberg, and they set up the case so beautifully with their first witness from the Inquirer and the catch and kill scheme. And then so Michael Cohen was there really as a corroborative witness. I mean, you didn't have to have the great day. Sure, he was a celebrated witness, and were he not to be there, jurors might say, well, how come the guy who arranged it all didn't make it? Why didn't you call him? But apart from that, the prosecution really did their job that way. They showed the math before Cohen even got into the box.
Well, they made a strong showing before Cohen got in the box. But and the Stormy Daniels thing, they just couldn't have the jury think, you know what? She and he never had any kind of affair. They never had any kind of liaison. And, this was all blackmail. This whole case is about paying off a blackmailer for a lying story. They couldn't have the juries have that reservation. That might have led to a couple of jurors hanging, not because they were entitled to under the instructions, but they just thought, this stinks. I'm not voting guilty. So I think that's why they had to go there. And the judge said, had you admitted that there was this encounter, I wouldn't have let this stuff in. And then she embellished an awful lot, and he didn't rein her in. That might be one of the appeal issues. And that's why it became, in your great words, so salacious and detailed with the spanking and a condom and all this sort of stuff that you just whip your head back. I know when I comment for the British media, they just can't believe how tawdry and tabloid-like the trial was. But they had to have Michael Cohen because someone did have to tell. If they don't believe that Michael Cohen ever told Trump what was going on, I think the whole scheme and the paper that we talked about, that Weisselberg did the calculations, I think it's just there's too much reasonable doubt that there's some scenario that when he didn't give him the job in the White House, he said, here's 420,000, whatever amount you put down, or you could have put 500, you could have put 130, whatever amount you put there. I'm sorry, you did help me all those years, and now I'm jilting you. It could have looked a little bit without Michael Cohen's testimony at all. They would have argued, well, this was classic, the adoration, the betrayal, the revenge. And without Michael Cohen to actually be there as a human being, and he testified very well. People have to remember that he was found to be credible in the state case where former President Trump has a judgment of $500 million. The judge in that case found Cohen to be credible, and Cohen got a little unhinged and he got angry, and he was a much more controlled witness in this case. And I think actually Costello, the one major defense witness, looked worse than him. I thought that was a terrible note that they went out on and actually increased the chances that Trump will be found guilty. So you asked me last week, and maybe you thought I was that I was wimping out. I wasn't. I wanted to see another week's worth. And from what I've heard now, I would vote guilty. And I think that they will vote guilty, including on the felony. And I think the rub will come on appeal. And I may be all wrong on this. There's not many precedents on this. And they may say, no, that's absolutely good enough. And I haven't studied the legislative history, but I'm worried about the fact that the only defense to the felony now is that, well, I just had false business records to impress an old college friend that I was making more, and I wanted to show him the books. So he'd say, oh, you're making $1 million, just like you said, and, vanity. If that's the only defense, if everything else is a felony, everything else has an unlawful purpose, Mark, right? I mean, it's so obvious that you'd be trying to cheat on your taxes by having false business records. They would just convict everybody of the felony. They kind of make the misdemeanor meaningless. And in the law, we tend to say they must have meant something by the misdemeanor, some really different conduct from the felony. And if the misdemeanor conduct and the felony conduct are almost always overlapping, the appellate court might have an issue with that. But it'll be after the November election.
Exactly. So now the jury gets instructions. This is my last question because we're out of time. But the normal jury instructions can vary, right? I was reading that, I always think of jury instructions as, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard all the evidence. Please consider only the evidence you've heard in this room, and please don't discuss with anyone, blah, 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 blah. And it's like a paragraph or two. It's the way I imagine it in my mind. But I was reading that the jury instructions could go on for like an hour or something. Is that, why is that? How is that? Can you speak just to that, please?
Well, absolutely. In federal court, some judges wouldn't let the jurors have the written jury instructions. So let's say they're 30 or 40 pages long and they take over an hour to read. And, one side or the other would actually want the jury to have the written instructions. And now it's become pretty normal that the jurors are given the written instructions so they can go back and they can reread, the 29th instruction that was really important. In an entrapment case, you want them to really focus on entrapment and not be just one instruction out of 50 that they hear over a reading of over an hour. But yes, they tend to be very long, especially in fraud cases, because they try to detail the statute, different defenses. They try to state them in a neutral way, Mark. But you have a right to sort of like, if entrapment's your defense, to read what is entrapment? What are the elements of entrapment? Who has the burden of showing entrapment? Does the government have to show that the person was entrapped beyond a reasonable doubt? Or is it an affirmative defense that the defense has to show? And so all that kind of stuff has to be reflected. That's what the judge is going to issue either right now or tonight after hearing the arguments. And probably that's the most fertile area of appeals, that there was a mistake in the jury instructions. Because if the lay people on the jury aren't properly instructed on the law, how could they have gotten the verdict right? So it's the most fertile area on appeal to challenge the rulings below.
David, you've done it. You took us through a bunch of stuff. These are complex legal issues, everything from gerrymandering to now jury instructions in the Trump case, and you threw in a prediction as well. So Katz has paid off. We'll listen and watch for you across the spectrum of media that you do, and look forward to your meeting. When are you back out on the West Coast? Are you coming back next week?
I'm coming back in a couple of days. I'm not going to be here next week for the arguments, but of course, I'll be, the crazy way we have to watch them without the trial being televised, where all the presenters are sort of looking down and they're trying to be, animated and everything, but they're trying to read the little summary at the bottom. I'm going to get it that way like everyone else. But I've been on Fox 5. If anyone's in New York, Fox 5 is the huge local station here, and I've been on with them quite a few times. One of their reporters is on the buses going by, so I've been with a lady on the bus on the 10 o'clock news here. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting back to California real soon.
Yeah, we hope to see you out here soon. All right, David, thank you. Safe travels. David Katz, everybody. Love that. Love my David Katz.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow. He was great. Man, we covered a lot of territory with David Katz today. I wanted to see if I missed anything.
There you go.
This from Luis, an active participant in our chat and super chat. Big shout out, Luis.
Big shout out.
I'm glad Alito is flying his favorite flags because it clearly shows us who he is. And blaming it on his wife is right out of the Cancun Ted playbook, showing us what he's all about. Go ahead, flag boy. Fly your stars and bars. Yeah, exactly. He is right out of the Confederacy. It's a great call. Yeah, Ted Cruz and Alito made for each other. But, make no mistake about it. This is a huge push, and you find it at the Supreme Court level, and I've mentioned this to you several times before. There's a huge push from the religious right. I mean, Alito is straight up feels that we're losing our freedom of religion in this country. That's his feeling. And so it's a bizarre, almost perverse Alice in Wonderland look at things to somehow impose religiosity because you feel we're losing our religion. You know what I mean? There's not enough religion. And, he is an extremely religious guy with that vision and viewpoint being shared on the court by several others. And so you end up with this wildly, just frankly speaking, Catholic. But I mean, there are all kinds of Catholics. They're the cafeteria Catholics, where they just talk about the fact that they grab certain things from the religion or the faith or the traditions and they enjoy those. But there is no extreme interpretation of the word. Mm-hmm. But what you have here is religious extremists, and they've really seized control of the court and also of some of the other courts in this country. And you have that extreme religiosity played out in Louisiana now. We started talking about that when women need access to those things that regard reproductive health. They don't have it, and they won't have it in that state and many others. And that's all at the hands of this Supreme Court. And it's informed, though, by those things that I just mentioned, at least in large measure, I'd suggest.
Well, there's supposed to be a vetting. There's supposed to be, this big to-do with a congressional investigation into the candidates for the Supreme Court. We're supposed to really look at who we're putting on the court. How did we elect people who didn't do their due diligence and ended up putting these religious extremists on the court? That's not what the people want, is it?
It's a show, those things that you're talking about, the vetting that's done publicly with the questioning in Congress, that's a show. So the Senate Judiciary Committee puts on a show, and the people in that show, the nominees for Supreme Court justice, they lie. We know and saw the lying that goes on. Everyone from Clarence Thomas to Kavanaugh to Coney Barrett to Gorsuch. They're liars. They lied straight up when asked these questions about women reproductive freedom, reproductive freedom legislation that was settled law. They also lie about the corporate and regulatory friendliness that they have, meaning they want to undo a lot of the bonds of consumer protections on corporate America and on those corporate donors and the oligarchs. That's why they vacation with them. That's why they take every manner of corruption from them. It's a show. So the whole vetting process and that Q&A that you talk about, it's celebrated, it's well watched, but it's a show. It's a lie. And you saw those lies played out. Sorry to, break any bubbles, but that's exactly what happens. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, a lot of news today, but we got a lot of good stuff. I was trying to find an email that we got some stories that were sent to us from teacher Lori has become active. Shadow producer Calvin Wong is really the most active when it comes to pushing us stories. Teacher Lori, putting on something of a show also. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com is our address. But I don't think we have time to get to it right this instant, or maybe we do.
Yeah, why not?
Now, that's the Half Moon Bay thing. Did you see it?
Yeah.
This is now what's happening. Some high school seniors trashed a popular beach at Half Moon Bay. Half Moon Bay is just south of San Francisco. And these kids are graduating. Look how they trashed the beach.
Wow.
And now the trashers have been held to account. And this overnight party on Poplar Beach. Poplar is popular. The Gunn High School Administration, GUNN, took these kids to account and they say and asked that those involved in the high school, these high school seniors, respond in some way. And so here's how they've responded. Dear Half Moon Bay community members, we, the student leadership of the gun class of 2024, formally apologize to the Poplar Beach community and Abundant Grace coastline workers for failing to leave your beautiful coastline the way we found it.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
They needed full tubing, for sure. Some of our peers enjoyed on May 19th an end-of-year gathering disgustingly leaving behind trash and belongings. This blatantly disregards all that we have learned about our basic civic duty and how to sustain the ecological health of our environment. Moving forward, we are actively working with our peers, parents, and staff to reinforce the expectations of respectful behavior, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's signed by the student body president and senior class president, the vice president of the high school class, the senior class, and the principal.
That was
they
a
all
pretty good
signed
apology, right?
A very solid apology.
Yeah.
And
on the Mark Thompson Show apology scale, I give it a 8.75.
I might actually give it higher, but I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's a full apology. I'm a little unclear. I think what would have given it maybe higher than 8.75, though, to be fair, is if they had said, and we are going to commit to weekly sweeps of the same beach from the students who are involved in this to make certain. Now, the problem with that is that many of them are going off to college or whatever, but you could even say just during the summer.
Yeah.
That would give it a 10. Okay, you guys have not only apologized, but you've made good. But let's be honest. They trashed the beach, they got busted, and now they're apologizing. So, again, good apology, but it was an apology sort of at gunpoint, if you'll pardon the expression, since it is the gun school. Gunn, Gunn High School.
Henry Gunn, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But look at that beach. Oh,
yeah.
Just awful. But I think they stated quite plainly and correctly, which is it does go up against what you'd hope would be the tenets of being a good citizen that supposedly you guys, your high school kids, are supposed to be carrying forward. I mean, you're supposed to be this great generation that we have faith in because we trash the place, the planet generally, and we continue to. When I see stuff like this, it's like, I don't know. Maybe not so much,
And these are local kids. Not that tourists have any, get a free pass to come trash a beach.
Yeah, but you say you're trashing their own pond.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Absolutely
this is
right.
their own county. This is their own coastline. Come on, people.
I think it's a fair point. It's a fair point. All right, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to bump the That's Rich to tomorrow because we've taken a good chunk of time to cover some of these issues today.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But I feel we did justice to some of these issues. We continue to appreciate your support, and we will continue to work on our audio levels.
I think they sound great now.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to go back and listen to actually. It drives me crazy. I'll tell you what drives somebody crazy. Me listening, being driven crazy, and then jumping on Tony. Yeah. And Tony goes, Mark, it seemed okay. I checked it. It seemed okay here.
Thanks, Tony.
Anyway. I do thank Tony, though. He stepped up. Albert's in London, and that's why Albert's not here to endure my abuse. So,
Albert, thank you.
Now Tony has to just be on the business end of it. Tomorrow, Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, Michael Shore on politics, Friday Fabulous Florida, and more. After Party Live is next.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Check out Kim over the After Party Live on the, the After Party.
We'll do it live, Mike. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
That channel. You got it. Until tomorrow, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.